So let it be written, so let it be done. This is Tabletop Terrors. What you're looking at is the cover to A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin, which is a dark fantasy campaign setting that all of us and a team of other awesome people worked on. What you'll walk away with today is an encounter to run at your table. But the main purpose of this video was, it's a big book. It's almost 500 pages, and we want to give people some really easy ways to just jump in and start using it and not feel like they have to memorize the whole thing. So that's the first thing I want to tell you. As the project lead, I want to give you permission to change, shift, and break Dragongrin, make your own Dragongrin, and we're going to teach you how to do that. In the book, there are a ton of tools, but they're all very modular. They're made to be, as James taught me, decoupled from one another. So while they work really well with each other, there's really not many places in the book where you can't just flip, grab that one paragraph, and kind of go for it. So we're going to show you a couple of places you can do that in the book. So let's go to one of our regions, which we call Dominions of Ash. So just think it's just a region. And ours is going to be Aquianus. So when you get to these regions, there are 11 of them in the book, it's super easy to dive in, and you don't have to feel like you need to learn everything first. Just read the title of the region. This one's Aquianus. Get Twisted Aquatic Depths, so you kind of get the primer in the subtitle there. And then there's this nifty little breakout box. It says Aquianus at a glance, and it just kind of gives you the vibe of the place, important details. The terrain, the climate, the person in charge, the Lord of Ash, all those things. Another really handy thing, if you scroll down, again, you can just skip all the rest of this. Go to the map and kind of just look and see what everything looks like. So that is kind of the way to get acquainted with the region. And you can do this with any of the regions. Today, we chose Aquianus.
So the really cool thing about everything Tim just went over in Aquianus is that all of those exist for every one of the Dominions of Ash. So every region is laid out exactly the same. All of the content, of course, is different, but you can find the same sorts of things. So if you are looking around Aquianus and you see that you like, there's a specific roll table, it is very likely, if not definite, that you'll find that same roll table in another Dominion of Ash. A lot of the sections in the book are laid out the same way so that you don't have to read the entire book before you start to become familiar with what you're looking for. So it's not that you have to memorize every little thing, but it's made to be, as Tim said, decoupled and modular in a way that allows you to, once you're familiar with Aquianus, you're effectively familiar with the shape of the rest of the regions, which should give you a better, it should be more easy for you to very quickly pull something from it. And it shouldn't feel like you have to learn something brand new every time you want to start on a new Dominion of Ash or region.
So one of the things that some people have expressed some frustration or confusion with the book is like the feeling that they need to like know everything that's happening in the whole book in order to be able to prep any sort of session or something for the game. And there's definitely a lot of information, but I think one of the important things is that you don't need all that information to run a successful session or even a successful campaign. You can cut tons of pieces out and still have it be Dragongrin and evocative and well run. So one of the things that we wanted to try to do here is basically just take the slimmest possible route that we can from, having a basic understanding of, you've read through the character options and things like that for Dragongrin. You want to run a game. How can I do that right this second? So what we're going to do is we're just going to pick a specific region, Aquianus, like Tim mentioned before. And we're just going to look through and we're going to pick out a couple different elements that'll help to make up our session. And then we'll just have a game ready that we could run in Dragongrin in Aquianus right now. And the elements that we're going to look through, which are all, in the book, in the region sections, we're going to pick out a primary location, which is where the adventuring party will be starting, when we get into the game. We are going to pick a peripheral location, so some sort of extra area. They usually have some like very basic quest hooks or intrigues going on. A sudden peril, so some sort of encounter issue that's going to come up. And then a quest and bounty that the party will be able to track down to complete the task for the session. And we're just going to take only those elements, and we're going to prep a session using that, just to kind of show, hey, if you want to run right now in Dragongrin, you can just take whatever is grabbing you from these elements and start something right this second.
So, as we talked about, we're going to just choose a location. There are primary locations in the book, and these are meant to be the sort of like larger village or town-sized locations. And just kind of read through these, and whatever seems like it is inspiring you, go with it. Just for the sake of simplicity, I'm not even gonna go past the first list here. Let's do. This sounds cool to me. Even keep. This infirmary and sanatorium uses the power of the exalting to cure its patients wholly if they can survive its treatment. So basically, the exalting in Aquianus is this power it sort of amplifies everything around it. You can use whatever you want, or you can use whatever like evil or like plot hook you want to put in there. But it's the only place in Dragongrin that performs standing resurrection attempts at great cost with no guarantees. So, Jeff, James, are you cool with even keep?
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And something I actually wanted to point out that's really interesting is these primary location descriptions are relatively short, but a lot of them, if not all of them, show up on each of the maps, right? So you can match the map to what even keep looks like. So if you're looking at the map of Aquianus, even keep is in the northeast corner, and you can see, even though we didn't describe it, you can see that it's on on a coast, and there's a dock out, and it's very large. It's on a big plot of land. You can get so much to describe to your players just from looking at this image, plus the little bit of lore we gave you, right? So we've separated some of the information, but it's important to know where you can find all the little bits of it to get the maximum effect, I guess, out of really showing your players what a place like Even Keep is like.
Yeah, and one of the benefits of keeping those descriptions short and like very narrative is that your Even Keep can now be whatever you want. So it's less about learning our lore, and it's more about like, hey, here's a cool idea for a crazy fantasy, sanitarium. Welcome home. That's cooler to me as a game master than having to learn the name of the person that runs it and this style, and it looks like this, and it's on this, and it's like, no. You could also put this anywhere else on the Aquianus map or in your own world, So, yeah.
All right, so we have our primary location picked out. So now what we're going to do is get a peripheral location. Now, the handy thing about these is you won't actually see them on the map because they're not really meant to be placed geographically in the same way that the primary locations are. They're more just meant to be just random incidental places that can be found or quest hooked to or anything like that, that can be placed wherever you need them to be. So we have a roll table in here. It's just a D10 roll table, which I have my handy D10 right here. So we're just going to take a roll and see what we get and try to make it work with what we've got so far. So I rolled a 4. So that says, Arthen ruins from before the Silver Moon crashed here, possibly holding the secrets to the people that lived here before, which is interesting. So we have some ruins to play with that might have some ancient secrets about the people who were here. So if the party's going to be in Even Keep, we can just basically put these ruins somewhere close by, and then we can find a reason for the party to need to go there, or they can find it by chance, or however we want to end up deciding it. We'll sort that out as we figure out the rest of these details. But it's a good starting point to sort of get some inspiration going.
Now, because Dragongrin is its own world with its own lore, there are going to be several named creatures or like mystical forces and things like that. So you might see some sort of named terms as you go through the different roll tables of the locations. You can just slot in whatever you want that fits your world. Or if you do want to learn, it's all very neatly placed in the Know This to Survive. So this first couple of pages, we'll talk to you about things like creatures known as the Vardig, or the Lightless Host, or the Exalting, these kinds of things. If you want to use any of the ones from Dragongrin, that's the best place to do it. And there's only like I say, it's like a page, basically like a page. So that's where you can go. If you hit something that's kind of strange and you're like, wait, what is that word? It's probably in Know This to Survive.
Okay, so the sudden perils table, we're going to roll a sudden peril here and add it to the list of all these things we have. You'll find these in all the sections of the book as well, the regions. This one is a D8, so a 6 on that one is going to be the desolation spreads corruption. You begin to notice signs of the desolation poisoning flora and fauna in the area, manifesting as a plague-like disease. Catching the disease may cause horrible complications, but if left unchecked, it could spread from this location. Similar to what Jeff found, even though this was written completely separately, it's already fitting into whatever we may do with even keep and some of these other things that are happening. So I think that's a really good one.
The final table that we're going to roll on, quests and bounties. So this is another D10. This is basically a table of plot hooks and people. And so it's a very easy way to immediately get the adventure sort of going. Okay, so 6. A Marrow traitor is allegedly embedded with the Ceaseless Travail. And as the Know This to Survive will tell you, they're basically a rebel party. And the Dismembered Legion desires their head. In exchange, whoever brings them to justice may choose a loved one who may freely live in Grin as an honorary Crucian.
So that's kind of it for what we need the book for. Obviously, you should keep it nearby if you're using it, if you were doing this to maybe look up some of the terms or different things. But the cool part about this is what we're going to do now. We are just going to think about how all these things go together. We're going to prep how you can play in Dragongrin using these things we've come up with. And we can even switch some things out for non-Dragongrin. You could change some of these things to be in a totally different world. It's completely up to you, but effectively from this point, we're just preparing a session, and you can kind of do anything you want to do here. You can bring stuff in from other books, other stuff like that. But overall, we're going to come up with how you would run this for some players maybe and what it would look like.
All right, so the great thing about having the PDF is that you can literally just highlight the information, copy it, and paste it into a Google Doc or a Word doc or whatever. And so that's what we did. So the rest of this video is going to be us just discussing these pieces and how they can fit together to make an adventure and give you something to run. And so, Jeff, what are you thinking? How would you kind of piece these things together?
Yeah, so I'm looking over these elements that we have, and something definitely stands out to me that's really interesting as a cool way that we could go about it. So I'm reading through Even Keep, which says that they do these, resurrections and these crazy treatments, for diseases. And we conveniently have a sudden peril, which is that the desolation is causing all these crazy diseases and corruption to spread. And then we have these ancient ruins. So my sort of initial inkling of how I would use these elements is either someone in the party or someone that they care about or someone that they know or just a quest that they've been put on, has fallen sick with this desolation's corruption. And the only way that they know how to get them cured of that is going to be to take them to Even Keep and to get this treatment done. But the treatment is a great cost and there's a huge risk, especially I think with the desolation, it's a little bit even more hairy than perhaps normal diseases might be. So you could, I think, very easily have something like maybe these Arthen ruins, have some sort of old regent or some secret knowledge, that they had that has been lost or something like that. And it's basically we got to find this X MacGuffin thing so that the Even Keep will cure our friend of the desolation, or whatever the specifics are. We can hone in on the details, but that's sort of the initial vision that started to shape up in my mind.
So I really like that, because the cool thing is, and I think this is what you should absolutely do if you were doing this, you should effectively tie the things you rolled directly together as much as possible. You can put steps between them, but basically those are the elements. If you find yourself suddenly going, oh, this is cool, but, I think I'd really like this guy, and you start getting off and you're making this NPC that's going to be there. Not that you can't do that, but we're going to focus a little more on all of this stuff. And hey, if you need something else, you can go back to the book, grab someone from there. I want to make sure you feel like you don't have to do all the work, and we really want to show you how little, the book does all the work for you. I hate to even say that, but I'm like, no, really, that's what we're doing here. So I really like that, Jeff. So then, do we want to talk maybe more specifics about some of those things, or because I have an idea for like an opening scene, and I don't know how you guys prep. I was going to say I think it's cool because we have very different styles, but where do you want to take this, basically?
Yeah, I kind of love, so just talking through drilling down would be smart, and then keeping an eye out for where the quest and bounty can fit in. So like a marrow trader is allegedly embedded with the ceaseless travail. So finding out a way to kind of fit that in somewhere, because right now we have this tight little story that I think is very clean, and that's the piece that, and it's fine that we don't know that answer at the moment, but just keeping that in mind, looking for a little shelf to put that on. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think drilling down would be smart. So what's your idea for an opening scene? Oh,
okay. So I thought this would be really cool because just when I look at the map in the book of where Evenkeep is, where it is, I am just imagining how the players are getting there. No matter what, they have to cross some sort of water. And you can see, again, even just looking at the map, Dragongrin has a lot of stuff with this water and storms, but if you look at this map and you imagine, okay, well, maybe they're going to come from the brine stilts, right? I'm like, they're island hopping over there. So
sure.
I was just imagining this opening scene where they're in probably a rickety, patched up, it's not a sailboat. What's the smaller one? Basically a tiny little rowboat. That's
yeah.
Barely fitting 4 people. If one of the players is wearing plate armor, you could mention that it's sagging under their weight. Water's coming over the side. And they're coming up to this place, and you can just describe the imposing nature of Evenkeep. Maybe there's, a guy on the edge of the dock, an NPC holding a lantern up, and it's lighting up. You see the red water and maybe the fog. And just really give this impression of Evenkeep and how, like I said, imposing, but also how much make the players feel like they don't want to go in there, knowing full well that what they have to do is go in there. And so I'm just imagining the scene of them showing up, and this innocuous NPC, probably, older gentleman that just says things that are a little bit off from what you would expect, and guides you. It doesn't seem entirely evil necessarily, but maybe it doesn't have your best interests at heart. And then, we can talk about who that is or whatever, but I just like that idea of really giving the players like, no, you almost sink on the way there. There's kind of no way back. Welcome to Evenkeep,
I dig that a lot. And a small distinction, something that I've sort of started doing and learned to do, is if I put just the party on that boat, because I do like the idea of a little rowboat, but if I put just the party on that boat, it is essentially a travel scene, which isn't bad. But if you put an NPC ferry, like crazy ferry person that ferries people back and forth to the sanitarium, that could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So you start off same scene, but now you have that crazy person is the boat driver.
Yeah. And he's telling you all about it. You can, slip in details and talking about it, and you could throw in some of the rumors, maybe roll a rumor and he just says it. Doesn't matter,
Yeah.
Someone else. Yeah. That's a really good point. I was imagining just a description of it, but I like it being a scene playing out at the beginning and with another NPC. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's really smart. And so, like I'm not going to make it complex, but just to say exactly what you just said, we're not going to keep this in the prep, but I'm just going to roll on the growing threats and rumors table just to see what happens. So I got an 8. Basically, he's murmuring about how these effigies are actually these creatures who are once turned to stone, and, they're destined to come to life someday. 2 of them have disappeared, and it's like, you got to be careful because then the players will go looking for that. But maybe if they press him for information, they can give it to something like that. Anyway, I love the idea that he has a little secret that he knows that if they get creative, he might tell them some information.
Yeah, and then even jumping slightly before that, if they were say coming from brine stilts, they had to find this guy to hire. You know what I mean? Like you get a little bit of a scene out of that where they're in the town. So
So I love that.
Yeah.
Opening scene on the boat, going toward, even keep. Love it. All right, so obviously you can put these pieces of this puzzle together however you want and however it fits your world or the session you're going to run. But at a very high level, what we have is there's this disease that is spreading from the desolation, this sort of black, dark realm. Someone in the party has the disease, or someone very close to the party has the disease. They're going to even keep because that is, even though it's a sanitarium, they have the power to cure. It's an infirmary, and one of the only places in the realm you can actually get that done. So even though it's a creepy place, they have to go there. So when they get there, even keep will happily cure the disease, but then they say, hey, and then tie it in with the peripheral location we got, and tie it in with the Arthen runes and the Silver Moon being crashed. That's generally it. From there, figure out how you want to fit in that Marrow Trader. Maybe there after... Yeah, maybe that's what I'd do. I'd make it so that the Marrow Trader is actually after the runes as well. And then come up with some sort of secret twist that would turn one of those elements on its ear. It's pretty much a session.
So one of the things that I like about what we have there is like how little about Dragongrin that you really need to know to be able to run this session and run it very well. Of like, as long as you know who the Marrow are, which is pretty easy to find. And the very basics about Aquianis as a region, which you have probably already read at this point. And then these couple elements that we had, there's all this stuff in the book. Arkans, Titans, Valens, other regions, Lords of Ash, all these things that are really cool. If you don't know any of those things, it's totally fine. Like, we have a full session right here that basically doesn't have any of those things. So it's just kind of, I wanted to sort of illustrate, like, if you're worried about not knowing everything that there is in the world, that shouldn't stop you from trying to play games in it if you want to, because there are so many things here that you can just sort of drill into these very specific themes of like, okay, let's explore specifically this one area of Aquianis. And you could run, easily like a 5-session mini campaign based off of the stuff that we just talked about, of like getting to the ruins, negotiating with the Marrow and the trader that you find there, bringing the stuff back to the Even Keep, getting cured. That's like an arc to a campaign, and you've needed to read like maybe 4 or 5 pages of the book, assuming that you at least know the very big picture. So I just think it's cool how far that you can get with, so few elements, that you don't necessarily need to have everything totally locked in and nailed down just to even get as far as we got here.
All right. So that is your session, and that's just one way to jump in and start immediately running a game with a Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin pretty quickly. We are Tabletop Terrors. We're all about fun, creativity, and RPGs. If you love that kind of stuff, then hang around. In terms of like comments, James actually had a really, really good idea, I think, which is, what are your questions about Dragongrin, or using the book, or anything in that realm? Because we would happily answer those, or maybe even do a future video featuring that comment. As is customary, let's end things with a Tabtarian toast.
May you mend the first brick.
May you kill the first snake.
May you conquer everything you undertake.
Slancha.
So you rolled all these things, for the prep, and you're not sure how to tie them together. I want you to think about the last TV show you watched, and I want you to know that they had these ideas, and they literally connected them directly. So, for example, to go over it quickly, Even Keep is where the ruins we found crashed. That's where the desolation was, and the Marrow Trader is there. It doesn't matter. The rest doesn't matter. These are all people doing exactly the things they're doing. The players show up, something happens, but no matter what, the Marrow Trader is going to do this, and the disease is going to spread, and all of those things are happening in the world. And so if you have an NPC that they met before, throw him in Even Keep. He's sick. It doesn't matter. The more familiarity the players have, the better it will be, but sometimes people are afraid to too closely tie things together, but we maybe don't realize that that's how they wrote every Transformers movie.
Terrible example of this.
it's such a good example, I feel like, because
I'm kidding.
those movies are so much like, and then Optimus Prime shows up, and then they fight, and then the moon, and then the bad guy, and the end.
And
You know
then
what I
in
mean?
the
I'm like,
second
it is-
one,
I think
they
the
are
lore
worth
is
it.
totally different.
I think
You know what?
Tim's
Hey, man.
point is that they're also lauded for their core quality. So
I think, you know what, then? That is exactly the best example to use, because that's one of my biggest problems
Written
with
with roll
my
tables.
campaigns, is that, like, the second one, I'm like, no, the robots were a secret. And, wait, that doesn't make
You
sense.
change all the lore entirely.
Eh.